You're listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast, hosted by Zach Bechtold and Matt Franks. If you'd like to learn more about the Bearded Theologians, you can go online at beardedtheologians.com, where we have past podcasts, blogs, and a couple items for sale. So check us out, beardedtheologians.com. Thank you for listening, and enjoy this week's show. You're listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast, hosted by Matt Franks
and Zach Bechtold.
So this week on the podcast, as we were looking through the lectionary and kicking around ideas to talk about today, which is a nice long hour process of us trying of a whole bunch of things that we almost should record, but we really shouldn't record. We kind of fell on this week's one of the Old Testament readings, Isaiah 44, 6 through 8. And so, Zach, I'll let you do your thing.
I like to read. So here's the scripture from Isaiah. The Lord, Israel's King and Redeemer, the Lord of heavenly forces says, I am the first and I am the last, and besides me there are no gods. Who is like me? Let them speak up, explain it, and let it out for me. Who announced long ago what it is to be? Let them tell us what is to come. Don't tremble, have no fear. Didn't I proclaim it? Didn't I inform you long ago? You are my witnesses. Is there a God besides me? There is no other rock. I know of none. This is I love this throwback to Isaiah, just in the simple fact that it comes up again later, right? A lot actually, but Jesus points to this in a lot of different ways of, here I am, here's what the prophets of old, if you will, said, and I am here fulfilling these things. But I like that about Isaiah is here's God speaking in this way of, show me, let somebody else step forward, right? Here are the things I've done and said, and if there's somebody else that can do it, floor's yours, right? I feel like just in this little context of what's happening here and what's being said, that God's kind of being a little bit sassy of like, hey, I told you, but if you want to have somebody else come up and step forward, go right on ahead. But I think the thing that speaks to me the most, I really think it's just that I am the first and I am the last, and who is like me? Just kind of that question of, here I am, and then the statement of, here I am, first and last, and then that question of who is like me really brings prevalent for me and in my faith of who else is shown you and taught you this grace, this love, who else? And for me, it always points back to really that question of, where do I find God at work, right? Where do I see God in this world? Who else is like me, whether it's good times, whether it's rough times like we're in currently in the midst of pandemic, in the midst of injustice, and we keep seeing God at work in the lives of people around us and in our own lives. And so that invitation to say, hey, look around, what else is going on? And if it's not me, who is it?
Yeah, and I ditto. But did you have a No Fear shirt when you were a kid? Like,
I did not, but my brother did.
But your
and
brother
I was
did?
super jelly. Yeah.
So I had one. I had one. It dealt with baseball because that was my life at the time. And those shirts were kind of to help you have like no fear with whatever it is you're doing. Like, that was the attitude, to have no fear. And I love that line in verse 8. Don't tremble, have no fear. Didn't I proclaim it? Like, didn't I tell you? Not like, don't be afraid. And I love, so I always think about like, I've told my congregation this, and this is a great kind of thing in Scripture. Anytime God is connected to it and says, "Don't be afraid," you should be afraid, because it's going to ask you to do a big, hairy, audacious goal. And so, like, the whole idea, I always think of like Mary, hey, don't be afraid, but you're going to be carrying a child. When Moses sees the burning bush, don't be afraid. Yeah, you're going to do this. And I think within our faith, like, especially if you think about with what's going on in our world right now, the biggest thing that's driving some of this madness is fear. Mm-hmm. And as followers of Jesus, we really shouldn't have fear. Now, there is a way to have a healthy dose of fear. Like, I think you can have a healthy dose of fear to keep you safe. And I think that that's smart. But I also believe that if you're allowing your decisions to be based off of fear, mm-hmm. instead of, your connection with God, or, instead of the other, then you're not going to make good, healthy decisions.
Right. Well, and we've talked about that on the podcast too, the difference between fear and being afraid, and fear meaning respect. Yeah. Right. And I think there's what you're pointing at is that we have this healthy fear, healthy respect for what is going on in the world. And we're not responding out of being afraid, but out of respect for the things that are going on in the world, that we want to keep ourselves safe and the people around us safe. Right.
Yeah. Well, and that's the conversation, and I know you've probably had to have them too with people, wearing masks. You're just wearing this because you're afraid. Like, you're damn right I'm afraid.
Right.
I have respiratory issues, and I know some of the struggles of, like, not being able to breathe. I mean, I remember when I was in 6th grade and being rushed to the ER because I couldn't breathe. Mm-hmm. And I remember that fear that like held on to me, like, and then having pneumonia and being in the hospital for almost a week. And, like, I don't want to ever be that again. And that created a healthy dose of fear with me, that I have no problem wearing a mask to keep myself safe and to keep others safe, because I know that I may be carrying the disease too. And I've been asked, like, aren't you just living out of fear? Well, probably. But I've been on the other side of not being able to breathe, and, and having to be assisted to breathe. And I didn't like that feeling then, and I know I wouldn't like it now. Mm-hmm. And so that's a healthy dose of fear, of trying to protect myself. There is a sense of protection, but I also think that if we're, like, it's not making my decisions for me, it's mm-hmm. helping educate my decisions, knowing that, yeah, we're not doing some things that we had, like everybody else in this world, we've had to adjust. But I'm not letting my decisions be based off of fear, but more of my relationship with God, who calls us to love God and to love our neighbor. And I know the best way I can share love is wear my mask. I mean, I know that sounds like I'm making a mask pitch, but I feel like as a pastor, I'm having to say that all the stinking time, because, right. We've lost sense of what it really means to be community and caring for our neighbor. Mm-hmm.
And you're right. And we're making, people are taking stands on masks. I don't get it. I had a young person the other day frame it in the way of, but you wear a seatbelt, don't you? Well, yeah. Masks aren't any different. They're here to keep us safe. Are they uncomfortable? Sure. Are seatbelts uncomfortable? Absolutely. But they keep you from going through the windshield. And do you have to buy a comfortable mask and put the damn mask on? Keep yourself, keep your neighbor safe.
Yeah.
It's just, I can't even begin to finish the sentence in a way that's relevant but a mask, what? But it does nothing but keep you safe and healthy, and your neighbor safe and healthy. Even if it's just 50% better, it's 50% better. wear the freaking mask, but you're right. We're having to take this stand as pastors, and it's just decent freaking human beings of put a mask on.
When
just please.
I always also tell people, like, so I was like, you watch the weather, right? I mean, we're in Oklahoma. Like, that's kind of a thing to do. You watch the weatherman. And it's like, you understand when he says it's a 30% chance of rain, that's a 30% chance of a 50% chance that it's actually going to happen. It either does or doesn't. And so, like, I like the odds of me wearing a mask not getting the disease better than me not wearing the mask or finding myself in an unsafe non-social distancing place. I can't tell you the number of establishments I've had to walk out of because I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel safe. And so I turned and walked away to keep myself safe because I'm around a lot of stinking people. We have a rule in our house that, if I've been out in the community and I come home, I have to shower first before I can engage my children. That's to keep them safe. And that's been a healthy practice for us, and it's been hard at times because when I get home, my youngest loves to come and greet me, and so, like, to kind of give her a heads up, I always just extend my fist, like, as a fist bump, and she gets it. And I think, like, and we think of this verse, we think of these verses today in Scripture, and that whole idea that we are God's witnesses to this world, and that comes with great responsibility. And how we live out our faith really is what matters. And are we doing it in a healthy way of showing people how we can be followers of Jesus, or are we living out of fear, not making wise decisions, not trusting, people that we should trust, the experts, and how are we witnessing to that, and realize that in everything we do, we are being a witness to God in everything. I know that's hard to understand. But I really would encourage everybody to think about how we're living out our faith, even in the midst of a global pandemic. There are ways that we can still share God's love, even though we may not be meeting in places. Even if you're one of those people that are doing, really extreme social distancing by not going out, by doing all that, there are still ways we can share God's love. And that's what, our real call is to do as followers of Jesus.
I got nothing to add.
You got nothing to add? So I think that's a good way. We ask this question a lot. Like, how are you being a witness to God, and a witness for God in the midst of our society today? That's a question we ask all the time.
Well, and maybe it goes back to that question of show me.
Yeah.
Who else is out there, right?
Like the Jerry Maguire, show me the money, show me the witness. Can we put that on a shirt?
So go to beardedtheologians.com, find out all of our other past podcasts, find out all of our other content there, buy a shirt, buy a mug. Sweet Jesus, let's get out of here.
So yeah, for the Bearded Theologians, I'm Matt Franks.
I'm Zach Bechtold. Thanks for checking us out.
First, guys, I want you to subscribe and like this video and push that thumbs up.
Thank you for listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share on all social media outlets. You can check out old episodes and more information at beardedtheologians.com. Thanks for checking us out.